Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure to inform you all that I survived the New York City earthquake of 2024. I'm still here, still breathing. Don't worry about it, I'm not going anywhere. Today, we're going to be talking about that whole shake that we just went through just this morning or this past morning. It was definitely an experience. It was my first time with an earthquake. I've never felt an earthquake before. I mean, if you want to be technical, I've experienced hundreds of earthquakes in my lifetime, but I've never actually felt a tremble from an earthquake before. And I just wanted to put that out there before anyone says like, well, actually, like I get it. Yes, I know there's hundreds of earthquakes, but this is the first time I actually felt it, and that was definitely an experience. Now, what happened with that earthquake, or at least the first earthquake that happened around like 10:50 ish. I was laying in bed, and mind you, I woke up and there was no earthquake yet. I woke up for maybe like 5-10 minutes. I was just going through social media, just talking with my family and everything, just texting them, letting them know how things are. And then I noticed some shaking. Now, mind you, I live in New York City, and we have a subway system. And sometimes trains, you know, ride right past us, and you could feel some shaking and whatnot. So I thought, okay, whatever. But I noticed some odd shaking. Like, this didn't feel like something as if like a train was running underneath. And mind you, I'm on like on a high floor. I'm not on like on the first or the second floor. I'm past that. I'm like on multiple floors. But I still felt shaking. So I figured something was wrong. And when I was laying in bed, I was looking at my computer setup, and I noticed my mic arm started to treble like this. It was exactly like this. And that's when I figured, okay, something is wrong. So my dumbass decided to still lay on the bed and, Google, earthquake detector. And I was looking through, doing my research. Mind you, I was like going through my phone as I'm texting like my relatives and everything. I was looking up, some wacky news to talk about on YouTube. Mother Nature came through like, I'll give you something to talk about. I'll definitely give you something to talk about. And I didn't see anything. But then I started getting text messages from like relatives like, hey, did y'all just feel that? And I was like, oh my god, I'm not the only one. Yes, I did feel that. So now I'm texting everyone, making sure everyone is okay and whatnot. And then people are saying like, yeah, I felt that. Like, that's crazy. Then we got word that the earthquake actually took place, or the epicenter of the earthquake was in Lebanon, New Jersey. That was where the epicenter was, and it was a 4.7 magnitude earthquake. And there was aftershocks, and that was in New York City. Some people in Connecticut felt that. Yonkers felt that. I heard people in Boston felt that too. I was like, okay, this was an earthquake. Alrighty. There were some people that still didn't feel it. It was crazy for me because when I felt that earthquake, after it stopped, it didn't even last for any more than a minute. But after it stopped, I looked out my window and I just saw people going about their lives. And I was like, am I bugging? Was it just this house? Was there construction going on? And but people are still hitting me up asking like, yo, did y'all feel that? I'm like, okay, there was an earthquake. So I'm hitting everybody up. Everyone seems to be doing fine. Mind you, I gotta go to work soon. That's hence why I woke up. And I'm starting to get like a notification. This was around like 20 minutes later. I get this notification, a public one if that. And it was from New York State saying like there was an emergency service because of this earthquake. A 4.7 magnitude earthquake just hit New York City. Something like that. We advise that you stay indoors. We get all this on our phones. And then we get another notification maybe like 20 minutes, half an hour later saying like, okay, like everyone can resume with like their usual daily activities of some sort. But New Yorkers didn't like that. They didn't like the fact that the public notifications came by too late because the earthquake happened at around like 10:50, and then the notification came through at around like 11:10, 11:20. So people are like, yo, like, you send this now of all times? Like, where were you when the shake was happening? So people were critiquing, New York City officials over that. And I understand people were confused. They didn't understand what was going on. They didn't know how to address that situation. They didn't know if any damage was done, if they should stay indoors. And New York City just came through and said, like, yeah, we just got hit with an earthquake. Everyone just, we recommend you stay indoors. We advise you stay indoors. You don't have to, but we advise that you stay indoors. And people didn't like that. Now, New York City officials did say that 20 minutes is a pretty fast time to send out a public notification on an earthquake. Plus, in addition to that, they wanted to make sure they were in the clear on what happened and how to go about it, rather than just say, like, hey, there's an earthquake, everybody scatter. Like, they didn't want to do that, and I understand. You don't want to cause, like, a panic to people. You don't want to tell them, like, hey, there's an earthquake, and then people are going to sit there and be like, okay, what do you want us to do about it? Do you want us to stay indoors? Are you going to pause services, like the subway, for instance? I can completely get that, but I do feel that New York City could have done a better job communicating that faster, rather than just waiting 20 minutes after the earthquake. I don't understand it. Social media knew exactly what was going on. I got my news from the social media faster than I did the public notification that New York City sent out. So, thanks for that, New York City, but I got social media to let me know what exactly went on. Other than that, everyone is fine, and I think that's a good thing. But throughout the day, I kind of took it upon myself to think back at what happened with that earthquake and think to myself, could I have done that, handled that situation differently? Could I have, ran for cover of some sort if, say, the earthquake was a lot worse than what we had? I decided to take it upon myself to go to WikiHow and look up what to do when you are in an earthquake. So I decided to go to the second method and looked up, like, say, you're indoors, because, yeah, I am indoors. So I want to see what I could have done differently in that situation. We're going to head over to the first step here. And the first step being, get away from glass, large furniture, and other hazards if possible. In the first few seconds after the shaking starts, try to quickly move away from anything that could fall or injure you. Get low and walk or crawl away from hazards such as windows, cabinets, televisions, and bookcases. Now, I will definitely say this. There's my bed here, and I do have like a closet of some sort. It's a closet here, and there is some stuff on top of the closet. And I will say, at the worst case scenario, if the earthquake was a lot stronger than what we had, it could have toppled over. But the way how I was laying on the bed, I was laying at the further side. I was like next to the wall. Like I was up against like the hug pillow. So if this closet was to just topple over, I don't think it would have gotten me. Maybe the debris would have gotten me, but even then, the debris that's up there wouldn't have really been that significant. It's not like heavy debris of some sort. It's a lot of trinkets up there. So I don't think I would have gotten hurt, but I think it's something to consider if an earthquake were to happen. The second step is to drop to your hands and knees under a sturdy table or desk. Piece of furniture, such as a solid table, can offer cover from falling objects. Get down on your hands and knees and crouch under a desk or table until the shaking stops. If you're in a bed during an earthquake, stay there. Brace yourself and protect your head and neck with a pillow. If you cannot get under a sturdy table or desk, take cover in an interior corner of a building. I was definitely in bed. I'll say that I was in bed during that whole episode with the earthquake. So I did the right thing. I stood in bed. I mean, later on I got up, but that's besides the point. I stood in bed. But what I didn't do was take a pillow and cover my head and my neck. I didn't do that. What did I do instead? I just grabbed my phone. That was the only thing that stood between me and something that would fall from a ceiling. My phone. This is not going to protect my head or my neck at all. I went on this phone looking up earthquake detector. That was basically it. I think that was a huge miss there. That was a huge opportunity to protect myself, and I didn't. And had the earthquake been a lot worse, I probably would have definitely have hurt myself. That would have been a huge no-no. I really was pretty lenient with what was going on. I was not lenient. I think that's the wrong word. I was very lax with that situation. But then again, that was the first time I ever felt an earthquake. So it didn't really occur to me it was an earthquake, though I suspected it was. I didn't think it was that serious up until now. And I'm like, oh man, yeah, I probably could have protected myself better in that situation. I think another important thing to consider here is, say I was to just hop out of bed and I just got under a desk or a table. The desk I have here on my setup right now is L-shaped, and I don't believe it's sturdy. And the reason why I say that is because the desk is made of wood, for one, and it's very thin. It's like this yay thin. I could say it's like less than an inch thick. If a heavy object was to fall, say, from the ceiling, God forbid, and I was hiding underneath here, this heavy object would have probably broke this desk in one drop. So I don't think this would have been the safest bet for me. I would probably have to run out of the room and get underneath the dining table. We definitely have a sturdy dining table, but even then, I don't think that's advised if you're in the middle of like an earthquake, because everything is falling, everything is shaking. So you kind of want to go for the most convenient spot to hunker down and protect yourself until the shaking stops. Step 3, I think, is pretty interesting. Protect your head and neck from falling debris. If possible, grab a pillow, a sofa cushion, or another object to shield your face and head. Then it goes to say that a strong earthquake can kick up clouds of dangerous dust. If this is the case, you should also cover your nose and mouth with a handkerchief or an article of clothing. Now, I have asthma. I have a respiratory disease. So anything with dust or debris that's in the air is definitely going to heavily affect me. But I think dangerous dust and particles in the air alone is dangerous to anybody. I don't think you need to have asthma to have this kind of risk. But if you have any respiratory disease, I think it's very important to take that into consideration. Now, do I have a handkerchief around me? No. Do I have a piece of cloth around me? No. But even if I did have, say, like an inhaler near me, or maybe like, a t-shirt that I could have just grabbed real quick to, cover my face or my nose, it's not something I would have thought of on the spot. And I think that is very alarming to think about, because it's like, geez, I didn't even think about that. If I was to be under the desk and I just got entombed of some sort and I'm just waiting for help, I don't have anything to cover my face with. Mind you, when I was laying in bed, I didn't have any shirt on. I was topless. I had pajama pants on, but I didn't really have a t-shirt. So I wouldn't have anything to cover my face with, which would have been really, really bad. So again, that was definitely a miss on my part. I'm just going to skip ahead here to say, in a strong earthquake, remember to cover your mouth to avoid inhaling dust, especially if you have a history of respiratory diseases. Of course, we just spoke about that earlier. But this is what got me the most. If you're trapped, don't shout, as you'd risk inhaling dust. Instead, send a text or a call emergency services, tap on a hard surface, or if you have one, blow a whistle to alert first responders of your location. Let me just put this out there. If you have a whistle, you are on top of your shit. You know exactly what to do. I never would have thought of just having a whistle with me when it comes to a natural disaster like this. I don't even have any whistles in this house, period. But if you have a whistle, you are probably miles ahead of me as is. But in all seriousness though, I think that's pretty interesting advice to hear. If you shout, you're inhaling dust. So it's best to just not shout at all. I thought that would be something I would have done. Like if I was trapped, I would be shouting. But then again, I would be doing more damage to myself than helping. And I think that's a very scary thing to consider, especially with all these earthquakes that happens around the world. We also heard about one going on in Taiwan, which was pretty big, as a matter of fact. So I can only imagine what people went through there. But other than that, I think that's pretty crazy, and that's definitely something I'm going to remember. Just not shout, but instead just wait for people to help you and just bang on a surface or something, and hopefully people hear you. I think it's pretty scary, but that is good advice. Now, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but I think what needs to be discussed is the whole CPR situation. I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do it here, but if I was to really, get into CPR classes, I totally would. If I had the time, I would do it. I have flirted with the idea of, CPR classes, taking CPR classes, and just getting a certificate. I think that's a very useful skill to have. I think everyone should learn how to do CPR. I think it's just a useful skill to have, period. Like, whether you're around, like, animals or if you're around humans, it's a useful skill because we all eat things and we all inhale things that may be bad for us and we might just pass out. But if you know how to do CPR, you could save someone's life. So again, I think that's a very well-rounded skill that everyone should learn how to do it with their in their lives. And the last step when it comes to this method is pretty interesting. Inspect buildings for structural damage and hazards. Check for cracks in the building structures, fires, smells of gas, and damaged wires or electrical appliances. Now, that one is pretty interesting. And the only reason I find it interesting is because I took classes for OSHA. And I got my OSHA license. I did my OSHA exam. Woohoo, But I think that's actually really good to know. Because even though OSHA doesn't cover residential areas, it only covers like businesses, I think being part of that field or learning OSHA, I should have been more vigilant with that because after the earthquake happened, we kind of just went about our day like as if nothing happened. But you'd be surprised how much damage an earthquake does. Just because you don't see the damage doesn't mean the damage doesn't exist. There could have been a gas leak. The pipes could have popped out of place. There could have been some electrical damage that happened, and we would never know. But here I am on the computer, with all this equipment here, thinking as if like everything is fine, and maybe everything is fine. As far as I know, the earthquake that happened didn't really do any major damage, but it could have. Just because it didn't do major damage doesn't mean there was no damage at all. So I think we could have been a bit more vigilant in that area. Just check your appliances, check for any gas leaks and pipes, make sure everything is okay. I think that's something I could have taken precaution in. But what did I do? I just got up, took a shower, and just got ready for work and just head on out to work. And that was basically it. So if I had to give myself a rating between 1 and 5, I would definitely have given myself a 1. I probably would have died if the earthquake was any worse than what it was. But I did hear that there was an aftershock in New York City at around 5 p.m. I was at work and I didn't even feel anything. So that was kind of weird. They were like, yeah, there was like an aftershock. You didn't feel the aftershock? And I was like, no, I didn't feel any aftershock. And they're like, what? That's crazy that you didn't feel the aftershock. I think it's because a lot of people are feeling more vigilant about earthquakes and aftershocks. Now they're actually starting to pay more attention to their surroundings and their environment. So that to the point that if they feel it, they're like, hey, did you guys just feel that? That was an aftershock. But me, personally, I just went about my day and I just didn't feel anything. But good to know I survived the New York City earthquake of 2024. I just find it pretty interesting they're calling it the New York City earthquake because you have people. The epicenter happened in New Jersey and Lebanon, New Jersey. And New York is just claiming it like as if it's their own. It's like all the focus is on New York and everything. I just find it hilarious. I'm just happy that everyone is safe. That's really all that matters to me. And other than that, that's basically it, y'all. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.